This morning, I woke up on this crisp, early autumn day to a foggy sky, misty and pretty. We know that it might not mean good for the weather and the state of the state of the Earth's climate, but fog has existed for a long time. Maybe it's not that bad, and it sure is pretty. But it's hard to photograph. So I did. I decided that I would take that sheet. By the way, this reminds me, I would put it in front of the camera for a moment to give it kind of the effect. We'll see later when I watch it back if it did so. Um, I also have another idea for a camera effect I would like to try sometime soon. And actually, I was going to show, I paused my videos, I was looking back at about something or whatever, and it was kind of looked very similar to this. It had the light kind of shining, but I understand too that might be a little bit hard to see me, so I'll put it here. I just finished a lovely breakfast as I moved the plate. I got a little creative in the kitchen and took paneer cheese, hummus, maple syrup, and a little bit of salt. And it was really good. It's been an interesting morning. I guess I'll just share a little bit about how it unfolded. And then we'll do some music. I must admit, although I've had a bit of coffee, not much, and I have that maple syrup, but just recently, hasn't started running through my veins yet and giving me energy. But hopefully doing this podcast, including, lovely conversations, sometimes that can do it. As much as I like having that ball with the funny wig on it in the background, I also kind of find it a little bit I'm reminded of a movie I saw recently, a classic I hadn't seen in quite a while. This Doubtfire in Heaven. I forget what they call him, social worker or whatever, was coming to the house and to his place, and he was tossing clothes off the furniture and everything. It kind of just reminded me of that. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny, kind of cute. I'm surprised nobody's asked about it, but at the same time, I kind of try not to have it in the image because it's a bit distracting. So yes, woke up to a foggy sky. It's slowly lifting, and welcome. Glad to have you here. Curious if you've ever been before, if you'd like to say how you came across this video, and we're hopping right in. I haven't been rolling long. YouTube showed me a video this morning that kind of inspired some things and also brought me to finding out about some things. It was a video of the show The Voice. So I'm just pouring some water into something here. Of the show The Voice, and it was a song. I was watching a video last night. I did end up doing the podcast I intended to do last night, and it was, quite a healing experience. And one of my new followers tuned in and was chatting a little bit, and that was lovely. But I wondered if it was going to happen because, it was like 8:30 here. But then I know when he goes up to do his fitness thing and this and that, I could find other distractions, but I figured that was a good time, and so that's when I did it. But I was watching a podcast of someone I just started following, really lovely couple in Tennessee. I don't know what this thing's about, but and somebody had a name in the chat that reminded me of the famous person I mentioned in other videos that my mother and my step ran into, and so I mentioned it, and then there was other Canadians or people that knew Canadian music and talked about that for a little while and some other stuff, and hoping some of them will be able to come check out the channel. I know that I showed as GNC in the chat, but that I have the other handle too, and that one's probably the easier one to find. But and I think sometimes in chats it shows. I'm not in a lot of chats. There's a couple of people I follow specifically, and that was just kind of showing in the feed. But well, that I get notified of, and that they post every day. They post music every day. One of them, it's likely not late enough yet. In a couple hours, they probably will. And the other one, sorry for my wild hat here. The other one has been posting, I feel, earlier, because they used to kind of start their videos very close to the same time. And she's been she's in Bangladesh. She's been a bit earlier lately. Her musical style, I don't think she's ever seen my videos, and I like it. I like the fact that she chats with her viewers. It's fairly diverse. There's something about her personality I like. I think she's got a pretty nice, I mean, I'm not as close with some of her peeps as I feel like I am with Maxie's, but and I'm a little bit confused with one actually, but I might just have to put this back on. My hair's wild underneath the hat. But yeah, so basically, heck, I might need to put this on too. The other day it was making it pretty difficult to put it on. So anyway, the voice showed me this video, and it was the performance, but it was also the lyrics in the song, and it was for me too. But a song, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. I didn't want to do that. Anywho, and at first I only kind of realized what it was kind of about. Then I realized a bit more what it was about. There's still some interesting lyrics, or like where it says that he climbs out of something about coming down from a tree, which I guess could happen. For some reason, I thought it was going to say he came out of it. I'd have to. Very new to the song. I'd have to listen to it again. Chapstick if you're curious. Chapstick if you're not. But for the other kind of sort of clutter I have laying around, it can be hard to find something to write on. And I found one thing, and I wrote a little bit, because the song, the title especially, made me think of my dad. And I don't know if I have a title for this song. I also don't really know if it's complete, and I don't think it is. but I'll share with you what I got. We can collab, and yeah. Um, and then the other thing I found, it was kind of interesting. I mean, this cousin has passed away, and I knew that this was on the counter with a bunch of other stuff, but I found myself writing on the back of a picture of my cousin's. Um, this goes up, I'll show it. And initially, I mean, yeah, sure. I could have taken more time to go find something to write on or typed it, to be honest. But um, I guess, and I hadn't even been up very long. I fell back asleep at 6:30 for a bit. Um, but I guess lyrics were coming, and I'm not much of a songwriter. I don't do it often, but they were coming, and I just came downstairs. Maybe that was part of it. Didn't feel like going back upstairs. Didn't feel like spending a lot of energy looking then too. But anyway, um, which was the last time I saw this cousin was probably the party that we had before moving to another province. Now, some of this I wrote in marker, which on the photo paper, well, I guess as it looked, I thought it was black in the other lighting, but it is kind of more of a bluish color, dark blue. Um, the marker's smudging, mostly probably because it's on the photo paper. But some of it was written in pen. I was doing it in two different rooms. It was like whatever was handy. um, so I think I'm going to start with this one because I looked at this one a little bit right before rolling, and I think I'll be able to make out my scribbles easier than this one, and I want to make sure that I have a copy of this. So I'm just going to stand it on here. Now, again, this is not a full song, but let's call it a preview. 35. Let's call this a preview, and then I might add more to it because I've learned a little bit about the person that it was about. Like I say, initially, this was not really supposed to be connected to the photo, but it seems like it was meant for me to realize that it is. So I might cover that song Almost Home. And then I was looking at different ways to look at that because what I feel like that song is about a homeless person who was, passing away or wanting to drift off to heaven, and somebody found him and tried to help him. And it's kind of like the conversation that they're having. There's somebody very briefly there. So yes, it kind of did inspire these other songs. I have two other titles, and I'm not sure which one would go with which. We've got, and I don't. It's just what I wrote. I don't know if I'm making sense of it now, to be honest. But maybe I am. Earth's home ways, and the sky is our home. So this is a bit of a rough draft, but I'm curious. And I'm not necessarily looking to change anything. I don't know. I'm the person left after like 10 seconds, but whatever. But I'm gonna give this a try. Now this first part, and it's a good thing I'm going to, because I'm struggling to read a couple of my words here. This all of this was written, and then I'll tell you what I found out about after I wrote it. I almost want to have the picture there too. And then we'll have to see if I end up. I've just been so achy and sore today already. Woke up that way. There's a part of me that wants to maybe bike down to do an errand. I got a couple interesting pieces of mail and they kind of connected to each other, which have an errand involved now. But I don't know if I can do it by bike because I have to go into the place and yeah. But and it'd be kind of cool to ride in the fog, but also traffic's going to be maybe, well, they should be being more careful, but they might not be, in which case they might not, you know, see me easily. And I don't have lights on my bike. And didn't know if I want to take that chance. Plus, I'm way too sore and achy. My back is very tight. My feet were kind of sore this morning, not so much now. My knees. And it's the joys of getting old. Like, I'm not 40 yet, but I'm close. And I say the joys of getting old kind of sarcastically. But this is probably a better height to sit at, definitely. I should always have one of these under. So, let's do this thing. And then we'll do this thing, and we'll talk about that, and we'll see if we do that. Or that. We'll see how this is going. You know, if people are here and they're enjoying it, it makes it, even with this is better a little bit. Just a moment. Right in time to bless me for my sneezes. I haven't been rolling that long, but glad to have you here and welcome. Just quickly checking something over here on this tab window. And we've frozen. Come on, unfreeze, please. I don't know if it's frozen for you. Come on, you stupid thing. Well, this absolutely sucks. I want to try something for a minute here. Don't know if it's going to work. Nope. Oh, we're back. Okay. Unfortunately, the person that tuned in is not here still. But I froze for almost 4 or 5 minutes. No, maybe 2 to 3, 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5. And, you know, whether they would have stayed anyway, who knows? Okay. And we got somebody here. Welcome. And curious how you came across this channel, if you've ever been before. And I'm just letting someone know that I had mentioned that I was messaging when it froze up that it's unfrozen. I don't know if that's who tuned in, but would love to. And you left, so whatever. And again, it's not always personal. Someone said, oh, if it froze up, they may have said, oh, maybe this isn't great quality, it's going to freeze again, whatever. Something came up for them, the phone died, whatever. Dare I do the thing I did a moment ago, which caused it to do that. This time I did it just fine. Interesting. My pointer, and I noticed that earlier too, a few moments ago before the freeze up, I think, but my pointer was briefly hovered over the money symbol, show your support for GNC. I've been meaning to try and get Cash App on the channel. We have PayPal on there. I almost thought Cash App might be better, but apparently they are. I'll take a cut. Like, I don't want to make you give a lot and have some of it going to PayPal and a very small amount going to me. But at the same time, I'm doing a bit better than I have been. More so in a financial way, not so much in a purpose way, but at times. And it's not about the money, really. However, who's going to complain if they get a donation? Not I. Now I just don't feel like going up the stairs, though, to be honest. Have a bit of something distracting me, but again, I do want to make sure that I get this what I wrote recorded. Now, the truth is, my first song, or the other song that I'm thinking of doing, I did chord before I came rolling. This one I didn't, and I don't know. And it's kind of my usual chords, but an interesting sequence of them or pattern. I don't know if I really want to take the time to chord this right now raw live. It's not like I've never done that before. I just don't know if I want to do it now. So maybe I'll just read it. Life wasn't kind, didn't let you shine as fully as you should have been able. But now you are stable in heaven's warm, sunny glows, gentle, warm, sunny glows, no longer affected by winter snow. And we both know your love. Now, again, and I'll read it again if you missed that, because I noticed that someone tuned in, but I don't know. It wasn't very long, but I don't know how much of that you heard. Again, it's one of those things where I wrote it kind of connected to something personal for me, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't relate to other people, because lots of creative songwriters, musicians, etc., they write things that are personal to them, put it out there, and it touches so many lives in different ways, right? So if you'd like me to read that again, I will. But what I also wanted to share about with that is there was an interesting connection to that in the Almost Home song, which I hadn't realized. So that was written on the back of a picture. They were there for a couple minutes. That was written on the back of a picture of, you came back, somebody else is here. Welcome, glad to have you here. Of a cousin who passed away quite young of MS. And last time I saw him, I would have been in high school or just finished. Then I moved to a different province. His MS progressively, eventually caused him to pass away. And this morning, it's as if and the person, maybe they, were triggered. um, I realized like it just all kind of fit together. I might have to heat up my coffee in a moment, but it all kind of fit together from seeing that learning of that song Almost Home, which I might cover, to writing this one on the back of this photo. He passed away 5 or 6 years ago, maybe at most 8. At most 8, I'm gonna say. Um, and I wasn't trying to make sense of it really. I was just you know, letting the writing spill out. Um, it was early morning. I really, was planning to take it slow, and I mostly have. Um, and um, and that's why I'm somewhat communicating slowly. But this is also something that I've never communicated before. Quite this particular thing. Um, so yeah, basically, um, I feel that my cousin, well, my cousin, and it wasn't meant to sound not meaning, not meaningful, but like as far as like the welcome, but maybe it did because you left. Uh, Maybe you thought what that wasn't supposed to sound welcoming. It did. No, I'm just tired and then in the middle of what I'm saying. um, it's kind of cool that the guitar's kind of showing in this part, but yeah, basically, I feel that his spirit essentially told me how he related to the song. I remember once at somebody's life celebration, I played "Dancing in the Sky," and you know, I knew that the answers to a lot of the questions, maybe because of feeling my angels around me before and belief, were yes. You know, is the music as an art and invention? Are you happy? Are you more alive? All that stuff, right? Um, but I felt like the person whose life celebration it was for. I don't know if it was while I was live or like I kind of knew the song. It's not a that difficult song to play, um, or or while I was doing it in person or before or a bit of both. Um, I felt like he was a musician, like he was kind of confirming or analyzing the song a little bit. And that was not my cousin. That's the person that I know that has played with many locals here in Canada, where I live, including myself at open mics, but has also lived in Vancouver and in the UK, has done some sort of musical work with David Bowie and the Beatles. Um, and lent me a guitar case, which I still have, actually. He's since passed away. But it was almost as if my cousin, Mark, was kind of, and it was, it's interesting. I feel like before I had saw that Mark from my past. Yes, actually, there is one that not every week lately, but almost every week I've been talking with. But it's kind of like after we talk, it's kind of like that's that for this week. But yeah, I almost wonder. I know that there was there was really interesting symbology with the name Alana, um, and a recent family passing. Um, but there was also a mark there, and I'm starting to think, he was saying, I'm with you," and possibly, in a very gentle, almost unrealized way at the time, maybe saying, "I want to share a bit more about my life with you." Um, He feels like I am strong enough to hear it and that I might appreciate, even though it's hard things, knowing about it. I'm sure he also probably realizes that I know that as much as it does kind of matter, it doesn't anymore now that he's passed away. Like he's not having these struggles anymore. And our loved ones in heaven, I'm sure they do make memories, both in heaven and watching us. I'm quite certain of that, I would say. I don't think that they maybe they don't, you know, and even us as humans, everybody is different, have different capacity. Like these two that I was watching that podcasted, I was slightly surprised, and I'm not entirely sure why, that it wasn't the other way around. But the one was saying um, that he can remember specific details about an accident he'd been in when he was in high school, I think. And she hadn't been through the same, I don't think. Or maybe she did. Maybe they were high school sweethearts. But she didn't remember the same details. I have a pretty good memory as well, actually. Um, like I said, the last time I saw this cousin, um, and they lived in another town in Ontario, about a 2 or 3 hour drive from where we lived. So in the summer, and I don't remember around Christmas, but maybe. And back when I was very young, there was a lot of family reunions that happened, and that was pretty close to where they lived. And so I don't remember them coming to see us very often, but that could have been because they couldn't do long car rides. Because she had some sort of health issue too, where she had some, I think, balance issues and maybe vertigo. I'm not sure what. Um, she occasionally had to take time off work because she wasn't well. But then she was able to go back. He never worked the whole time I knew him, but he did have MS. And at that time, it wasn't, I mean, it did affect his balance too. But at that time, it wasn't, and this is the thing that annoys me too, is like when we have a disability, and I did a video just on this topic a little while ago, it does affect how much we can do most of the time. Not always, but most of the time, a lot of the time. But it doesn't mean we can't do anything. And like I say, I wish that we lived closer with him. And I don't know what his days look like. I know that he was kind of blessed, as sometimes I am, to be able to have his spouse at home. And maybe she also took off some time to care for him. But again, it wasn't at its hardest stages at that point, I don't feel like. I remember he fell down the stairs once. We weren't there. I think we were coming for a visit. So he told us that it had recently happened. Um, but, I feel like maybe his days look a lot like many of mine do. Um, but I'm also very thankful that I haven't been through something that he shared with me. Basically, and I typed it up just because I wanted to, as a way of processing it at the time. And it's weird that there was a memory update. I just found out that my young cousin, he was in his 40s, who all my life had a nice home. I think same home the whole time, was homeless in his youth when his parents passed away and they'd moved for college. Um, He moved with his parents to a new home, a new town, and was going to start college, and his parents wanted to move with him. His mom was already struggling with her health, including MS. None of this I knew until this morning, folks. His angelic presence told me when I have experiences, when I pick up on these things and that they're relayed to me, it can be, sometimes more impactful than other times, but again, it's not all the time. And I think I'm thankful for that, but they'd been there a few months. Then, is often the case with our family, there's either an accident or something that takes them young. His parents passed in an auto accident. Um, he's mentioning how this part of his life he never told me about because he felt like I was too young to know about it at the time. And I can't control, what age our viewers are going to be that see this. I can just hope that maybe this makes them think about some things in their life and perhaps if nothing else, just the fact of how fragile and precious life is. Although I totally understand that it can be very hard sometimes to be in this world. Um, you know, it can also be very beautiful, and that's this song actually would be a great segue to that. But I want to finish what I was saying first. Um, and even in spirit, he's never known whether to tell me or not. But yeah, it sounds like he was kind of trying to make me feel and think that he feels like I can manage to hear about it. That I might like to learn a bit more about him, essentially. But honestly, I don't know how much she knows either. You know, in fact, I remember all my life I grew up thinking that these two people were my cousins, and then one day my mother said, "Well, they're not your cousins." I mean, she'd been one of the ones that made me think they were all my life. I don't know if maybe she was just. I don't know if she'd be this deeper or whatever the word is, thoughtful, chapstick if you're curious, chapstick if you're not. But there's a part of me that wonders if she thought, well, I mean, his passing was hard, whether he was related to me or not. But we definitely, once we moved to another province, we weren't in great contact with them. I mean, we tried to call them their house a couple times, and mostly got the voicemail. Um, like I say, his health was getting worse, and my mother had tried to tell me that it's one of those kind of conditions. I mean, it's not that I didn't believe it, but I didn't maybe quite grasp it. And then her mother passed away, and she, like I said, had her own health issues. And Mark says, "You also want to know something else, Gore?" He says, or, whatever you wish to go by. He says that they didn't want to disrupt our new life that we were that we were having where we lived. Which I've got to say, I sort of understand, but I kind of think is a silly reason. He's like, maybe it was. Maybe it was. From having chronic health conditions and the struggles that you have, that sometimes you just don't have a lot of energy. Like we weren't, this was years ago, but we weren't very into the technology and the social media and that, you know, I can see the good that it can have in people's lives, he says, but he says we just didn't use it very much. And it can be a way that helps with staying in touch. Um, he says, and yes, that was the other thing. He says, if I'm being completely honest, though, he says, I knew that I might not live long. So I'd also kind of decided, and he says that he's glad that I mostly haven't and hopes that I won't make the same decision, and that I will live by my other friend's advice that I recently heard, because apparently he seems to be reading. What's happening is he seems to be kind of reading my thoughts, where I'm kind of also thinking about that. He says, but he just decided that he didn't want to really get close to, you know, a lot of people, knowing that you know, he says, I guess the truth of the matter is that we do all die, we all pass away, and but he says, um, when we know that our life is going to be shorter. Yeah, but she might know about this too, and it feels so real to me. I would hate to ruin that. So, when we know that our life is shorter, um, we sometimes unfortunately feel like, any of us that have, a serious health condition, like, it's not worth maintaining connections, but know that that does not mean that the connections that we have made in our life don't matter. It's just that, the other part of it is too, is we're not as able to, I mean, sure, some people are, but he says, like you said, I was almost 50. Um, it really made me feel low energy a lot of the times. Um, he said he would try to read, telling me with disability, he would try to read, but a lot of times he struggled to follow a page. He said he watched a lot of TV. He would go for drives with Nikki, their dog. And actually, that's true. I do think I remember him calling her Nick, even though Nikki's only one extra syllable. Um, and occasionally you visit his nearby family, and he had the occasional person that he did hang out with, but he says it wasn't just with me and my mother. He says he really, he also very much cherished and made sure that he did so the time with his wife. And so some people might know people that have this condition, and maybe they're not in a lot of contact. Maybe they are because the person is a very social person and is trying anyway. But if they aren't, I think this is a message and not holding it against them. He said, I wanted to make sure that I, that our significant others are our closest person in our life most of the time, and how important it is to cherish that. And, always, because none of us knows, but when you have a certain condition where it's more likely, you sort of know. He says you sort of know. He then shared with me that after his parents passed away, yeah, like I say, he had become if I could put this into a song, and maybe you know other songwriters can help too. But he'd also shared with me that this morning that when his parents passed away, he didn't know many people in the town at the time, and I don't sense that it was the town that I knew that he lived in, but maybe close by. And he said, with MS, I really wasn't able to drive. I try. Well, actually, it's interesting because I knew him to be someone who drove convertibles. Um, I don't think she was the main driver. Maybe she was, but he says, "Oh, I did drive, but I didn't find it easy, and so I didn't drive often." And I was diagnosed in my late teens. He says, uh, so for a while I put off getting my license because I didn't think that I should drive. I thought that it would be too difficult for me. He says eventually, because driving is a handy thing to be able to do, I did, and I would drive occasionally, and sometimes I'd force myself to because it got me out of the house and it got Nick out of the house, and and or we had something that we needed to drive to. But he says, I really tried not to very much. Um, and he says, but at that time he didn't drive. He couldn't drive to anybody. And it's true that back then this would have probably been before cell phones, or before they were so popular. And so he's like, I couldn't really contact anybody for help. I spent about a month living on the streets, he said. Um, and he says, it was mostly good. He says, I wasn't musically talented like you, so I couldn't make myself money that way, and I didn't like to ask people for money. I didn't like it. He says, most of the time I had to sit on a bench because I was unable to sit on the floor. But if there wasn't a ground, but if there wasn't a bench available, I would. Um, and he says that he thought, thinking back about it, they don't hold many memories, but they do hold the ones that stand out the strongest for them. And he says, thinking back about it, he says that you know he felt not that he looked rough or dangerous, but that he looked like, he says, people are going to look at me and think I'm homeless. Going to look at him and think that he's homeless. And first of all, he felt like that was his reality because it was. Second of all, I mean, you're not as able to take care of yourself. He said, I went to, never really a shelter, but he's saying that he did go for meals occasionally at at a place for homeless people. Um, and it's not that he feels anything that strongly negative towards such places, but he just said that he felt like he didn't belong there. He didn't really feel right being there or to be there. Um, so he says, I hope that your hand to me, but also anyone else who relates to this, or, and if you don't, you might know somebody who does, or you yourself might someday. He says, I don't want you to think that it was terrible. It was a hard time in my life, he says, but, and this is the most real I've ever heard him. I mean, he was more of a listener, but, we all have the ability to kind of put together speech, and he's healed from his MS. Maybe that was partly made it difficult. Not that I noticed it strongly, but when we'd see him, you know, I mean, of course, I was always I was much, I was in school and other activities and blah blah blah. Like, I mean, and he says, and we had you come visit our place because you and your mother mattered to us, and you do realize that, right? And I do. Um, but he says that I should go get some hydration here. Uh, um, that yeah, he just gonna look at his picture for a moment. He found places to keep out of the elements for the most part. He found caring people found him. Um, you know, he says he lived in a place that doesn't get winters like we do, um, and he says he was even briefly taken in by somebody um, close to his age, and they formed a lovely connection. He says, "Yeah, this is starting to sound like a autobiography or a book I should write on his behalf. I don't know." Took him in, and because there's some interesting elements to it, some very kind of specific elements, and helped him get back on his feet and get him an apartment, which he had for about a year. But partly, being homeless and also the genetics did kind of contribute to his MS. Then he met his wife, who he was with for a long time. They dated for a little while. Well, not wife. They never married, but he says, but that's probably a context that you might more understand, or maybe you'd understand either way, and I do. And they bought the house together that they had. And he says, to take care of my body, he knows that sometimes it's hard to care about myself for certain reasons. I'm not quite living the life I'd like to in some ways, but pretty much just saying keep trying and don't give up, and keep trying to I'm going to have days where I don't really feel like it, and that's okay. Um, and you know, I'm just like today, my goodness, some people, some mediums when they channel other people's loved ones, they feel like they kind of feel the health issues that the person had. I mean, even as I'm speaking, my legs, but then I've been experiencing that a bit lately. They just feel tender and sore. Um, and yeah, basically, I'm going to heat up my coffee. Basically, that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, it's kind of like, oh God, amazing I got up that easily, especially with my hands being occupied with beverages and laptops. It's a more coffee kind of day. I think it's going to be a long one. If I fall back to sleep, I do, but so, you know, part of me is disappointed that nobody saw this raw live, but some may see it afterwards. And truth be told, truth be told, as much as this might inspire or move or resonate, whatever, with other people, or they might just, yeah, I don't know. It really was, I guess, especially for me. Sorry, the camera was kind of stuck on fluff, but the camera, yeah, he says, I'm younger than he is, but that I'm certainly getting close to the age that he passed away, and he says he wouldn't want to see that happen to me. Now, if I happen to decide to share this with G, I mean, I think, Ray has said it before and would say it again as well. I think that as much as these kind of things can be reality, I'm not that severe. I won't say that I don't have things going on. Not that long ago, I went to the doctor, got some tests for some things and this and that. I mean, other than the celiac, but I think that there's maybe some things that with further testing they may have found, or that they just missed or whatever. But the point of the matter is that um, I'm mostly doing okay, and coming from one, it seems like now two people who passed away young and had partners. The biggest thing that they can suggest and remind us of, and we do pretty good with this, I feel like, and to other people that might hear this as well, is to cherish. Sure, people in our lives in general, but he says the most important person is the person that we live our day-to-day life with, that we have gotten to know, and love so deeply. He says, that's the most important. If we have that in our life, just cherish the moments. Don't fight over small things. Have lots of laughter. Enjoy your time together. Don't try not to think of the inevitable, because if you do, you will get sad. You will feel anxious, and it will be hard at times. But mostly just love, laugh, enjoy, because that's what truly matters. So this one has been a bit quiet, and like I say, that's a little disappointing, but there's a lot on YouTube, and sometimes the algorithms aren't working in our favor necessarily, and the people that have tuned in, who may have in fact been meant to be here, again, there could have been other reasons, not necessarily personal, or it could have just been they were too quick to decide whether this is something they wanted to watch or not, whether this was something they related to or not. I don't think I'm like that. Usually I'm not. Because I usually pretty quickly am finding something to like, but every now and then it's like, okay, that was triggering or that was odd, and it's like, no, this is, I guess I do it, but no, I don't, not often, but I wouldn't do it to someone who is live, especially someone who noticed when I tune in, and especially if I'm the only one there, I'd feel bad doing it personally. That's the kind of person I am. And I hope those people feel bad. Just kidding. But at this point in this video, I think I'm going to share an original song. As I say in the comments, it's maybe not a complete song. I should be careful leaning on that, although it's dirty. It's also kind of dusty. It's maybe not a complete song. I wrote it this morning, but I'd like to share it. So I'm going to go back to the living room here with the laptop and stuff. And I'm glad to have you here. Curious if you've been to the channel before, how you came across. Okay, any of that. You missed my speech about that just before you got here. I laugh, but and I do. You got to learn to shrug it off as a content creator, and sometimes in life. Although I don't think people would do that in life. Although some maybe would. It's like somebody's. I guess they figure, oh, I might not like it. Other people will. And again, it can be hit and miss, but definitely sometimes the case and the hope. I might do music later. I think what I'll do is look for some songs. Like I always try and make good titles, and usually it doesn't take that much. It's not that difficult for me. I find it easy and enjoyable. And but sometimes, you know, but and I think that the title is possibly relatable, but it's not certain songs that people would be familiar with, so they might not know, or they might not, like as opposed to, oh, that's my favorite song. But then again, if it was, would they stick around to hear it, or would they go look up the original? Depends how much they appreciate people's covers and discovering new musicians, right? If I'm still rolling, well, I don't know if notifications, they say when somebody goes live, but do they say when somebody is live specifically? Yes. And then it updates it to saying, it updates it. I don't know if that's updated. And I just opened this tab this morning and it still says is live, but definitely those are from the other day. So, but either way, hopefully it was like, okay, hopefully like I'm thinking of one particular person, but maybe not just one. If she sees that the bottom one was actually the first one, and then the next one was the next one, hopefully you'd be like first come, first serve. For lack of a different way of putting it. That's so interesting. These bowling games that keep coming up, keep coming up. Big one. Kind of like for someone to tune in. Also, what did I do? Here it is. I know what this title sort of sounds like as I look at it again. And yeah, I had both socks on my lap earlier. I stood up and I saw one, and I don't know where the other one went. But it almost sounds a bit like Earth's Highway. Now, it was more my cousin Jenny who passed away on a highway accident, and I guess maybe Mark's parents. But, ooh, I have to get the cup there. My dad wasn't exactly on a highway. Maybe what this maybe should be more like is Earth's homes. Talking about, the different types of homes, whether it's a structure or the outdoors. Um, I spilled coffee on this because I don't know if it's easy to wash. It's got all the stitching. It's a very special coat. I sometimes have it in the closet most of the time, but then I bring it out and let it be special for a while. I mean, it's always special, but didn't I just? I think I did, but I left it out there. Put a warmer water into a cold one. I'll work my way through that stuff, and hopefully I'll do that soon. But got some nice days still coming up. It looks like the fog is actually completely lifted anyway. I tried to get some, and I think that it'll make sense why I picked the photo that I did for this. I found it online as a free image, um, but I tried to get some pictures this morning, but the camera was making it too crisp. Or actually, I couldn't find the camera, and he later said that she said that it needed to be charged. Uh, but the cell phone, too good quality. I kind of want to turn that off. Although I know that I know in the past I've been able to be heard over the AC, even when I'm sitting here. during the summer when I was podcasting, same way as I am now. And I did look because somebody reminded me the other night that it can happen. I'm not on mute, so. So, that's why I had this in my hand. I'm going to share an original song that I'm working on, and I would love for you to help me with the title. Now, I do have some ideas, and you laugh, but whatever. Whether I want to add more ideas, I don't know, because then I'm not great at picking. So, you know, the strings or things, the strings and things, picking strings and things. Let's write that. um, I think that the one that I'm working on about my cousin, I think I'm going to call that Earth's Homes. Maybe I'll even add a little bit in about their home that I knew them to have. I don't know if there'd be much to say, but maybe. I mean, they had a living room with leather furniture. That's not necessarily weird, but whatever. And some nice wood furniture. They had a room in their house with a big window. I still remember one time we saw the car rolling down the driveway. Apparently, I mean, we had been inside for a little while, I thought, too. We just happened, or maybe we hadn't. And usually we sit at the other one. Or maybe I just went into that room because I wanted to. I don't know. And yeah, for some reason, the driveway was on a bit of a slope, I recall. But for some reason, the car, it's like our dog accidentally falling in that pool. Little tiny dog didn't realize what a pool was, I think. But no, and we had to go out and kind of, luckily there was no traffic, and somehow we were fast enough that we were able to catch the car rolling and push it back into the driveway. And but that particular room in their house was very white, very minimal. Their whole house kind of was, actually, but like minimal, but everything was white. It was like a showroom that you dare not eat or drink in, kind of thing. We spent a lot of time at their kitchen table that they had. There were two people there briefly for a moment. And yeah, we spent a lot of time there. I don't remember much about their yard, and I don't think they had a very finished basement. Like that one room is all, those three rooms, I guess, have always stood out. And they had one of those built-in garages in their home. But again, I didn't hang out in there much. But if I was ever with them in their car, but most of the time we just went and visited them at their place. Like I said, they probably came down to see us a few times where we lived, but not much, I don't think. Anyway, I think Earth's Home, so that narrows that down. That one's already a title of a song that I mentioned. If nobody's here, and I'm not sure what I think of it, but maybe. I would have wished I'd started a little bit later because you get the maxi people. But Sky is our home. Might work for the title of this song. I don't know. But just back to my cousin for a moment more. It's very interesting. I never really thought about it much. Like I say, it was somebody in our life, him and his lady. They were somebody in my life, but that, I mean, it's those vague memories that sometimes we have growing up, especially sometimes at really busy times. I mean, a lot of us are very busy people, but like for me, my school days and my extracurricular activities and you know the loss of my father was still not that long out. It was kind of around that time too, sort of. And I unfortunately don't remember much of the conversations that we had sitting at their table or in the living room. I know that sometimes it was around music. Um, and he says, we've always enjoyed your music, both in life and from the beyond. Um, I know that they love Sarah McLaughlin, who I've covered many times before. I know that they like BNL. Um, I want to say Beck stands out a little bit, um, like that old school rock and stuff. But it's very interesting to, and there's somebody very briefly there. Like, I don't like that stuff. Prince, Queen, that kind of stuff. But it's very interesting today and how I've done so to learn that my cousin, um, he had a very similar life to what mine kind of is like, with disability and, obviously had different things as well because that was his life. Not that, some lives can't be very similar, but, and I'm thankful that I didn't kind of go through what he went through. But, he lost his parents young too, I guess. I've been through that. My dad did as well, you know. And it just really relates to how hard it can be sometimes, how sometimes it's very lonely. And he says, and can you only imagine what it had been like before the days of the internet or the social media? He says he played a lot of card games on the computer and that Mahjong game and which I actually do remember that. It was just an office. I think there was some art in it a little bit, but but now I'm going to do this song, and I think what I'm calling it is "The Sky Is Our Home." And there was somebody very briefly there, but Mark does just want to quickly say that they're all really sorry that I am experiencing the physical and sometimes of the mind struggles that I sometimes experience. They're saying I don't deserve that. Very few people do, but you know they know I'm doing my. He knows I'm doing my best, as do they, and so they're proud of that. But yeah, so I'm just gonna pick through the chords a little bit, I think, or something. I don't know until somebody tunes in. Because it's great to know that my angels are with me. But and look at that. It left a mark in my life's heart. I wonder, was it foggy, a foggy sky? No, your mind was just foggy, tired just trying to get by. This was better when I ran through it before I did this, and there was somebody very briefly there up until like tired. I guess they went to sleep. Trying to get by in life. So am I. I know you know, I know. much. I should have been recording it then, but whatever. Music, Todd. It's rock. It's original. Music photography. Lots of love to give and beauty to live. Experience in music to heaven, down to earth. Showing us all the world. As we're perfect. It left a mark. It left a mark in my life's heart. I wonder was a foggy, foggy sky. No, your mind was just foggy. Tired and trying to get by in life. And so am I. I know, you know, I know, you know, you know, I know. I like that. Music. Lots of love to give. Lots of beauty to live and experience. Heaven and to down to earth, showing us all what we're worth. I don't know. It's a bit of a short song, but I don't know if there needs to be anything else to it or not. If anything comes to mind, if you relate to it in some way and you'd like to kind of say how you do, whether in a lyrical sense or otherwise, feel free. And I guess we'll see where you know, maybe I'll post another version of it sometime, and we'll see if anything's been added. But yeah, this has just been a quiet one, and it's not exactly motivating. So I think that I'm going to wrap her up, put a bow on it. It's been a gift. It's been special and nice to do this, even though it's been quiet. And we'll leave it at that. Okay, take care. Good old neurology. Yeah, but that's not good either. That's not. I can't wait for it. I can't wait.